Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another episode of League Unlock. Here again, Mark, here with you fine feathered individuals. Today for a little recap action from everywhere but the LEC. Remember, Monday, Tuesday matches. Okay, whatever. Okay, we're ignoring that because we did have some great matchups in the LCK. And I don't know if we're going to go any higher, but it feels like we've at the very least reached a summit on the ROLSTER coaster, a cathartic victory in the Telecom War, which we are fresh off saying this rivalry's done and dusted. It's just T1 stomping them. BDD and the boys were not having it on the day after, I can't even remember, like 1-8, losing every single match against Genji, T1, Hanwha Life, just in this circle of beatdown. They finally get some revenge, and boy, did it look like it was relieving, because this game too in this set, not only does KT win, they absolutely dominate T1.
You know, when you can feel it in the air outside, the thunderstorm is coming, you know that it's going to happen, and bam, here it is, and it's all that rain hitting the ground, splashing around, creating those puddles. That had to be the downpour of KT ROLSTER finally breaking through here in this top group against one of these meaningful squads, one of these elite teams within the region, and of course, even better that it is the Telecom War, and certainly providing, again, just when you thought it was going to be dead and done, a little bit of extra juice, a little bit of extra life to this rivalry, getting a win like this. I think there is something to talk about, underperformance, some head-scratching moments as well from the side of T1 that doesn't quite line up with the form that we have seen them in the last couple of games, weeks, whatever it is, but it still doesn't take away nearly, almost anything from this win and what we saw put together as good things from the side of KT ROLSTER. And again, it all starts with our guy, our star in the mid lane, Mr. BDD, being the one carrying the heavyweight.
Yeah, and he's the guy who picks up Player of the Series as basically any victory that KT gets. He's usually the guy doing that. And the Taliyah performance in Game 1 was the now iconic and familiar 1v9 level that we've seen out of BDD. But the second game where they actually dominate, credit where credit's due. Perfect steps up in a huge way. Cuz looks comfortable. Peter now kind of firmly back in the starting lineup over Wei. Everybody else kind of stepped up to the level that BDD is playing at. And of course, the T1 Kryptonite of Ziggs rears its ugly head yet again to end the series sweep.
I thought we had solved that one after the run against JDG and everything else, but here it is, old demons coming to haunt T1, the Ziggs pick being one of that. They do seemingly struggle to prioritize or strategize and find the right avenues to get on top of that champion before it becomes an issue, before these teams are able to start steamrolling these compositions. And of course, kind of assisted quite easily by a lot of the easily layered CC in these compositions. Annie in the mid lane is the big one, of course, but I think BDD, the way that he played that Taliyah in that first game, the skill checks, the plays that he made against Faker 1v1, I'll allow an Annie game coming on through and the type of skill that's required, but still the execution on the rest of the team, you're right, perfect. Doctor, all these guys are stepping up and delivering in this second game to a level that we haven't seen from the rest of this KT ROLSTER squad. So absolutely gonna give them their credits, give them their flowers for this type of performance.
And obviously there's been so many games, so many series already in the LCK. No overreactions to be had about T1 getting stomped like this. They've still looked so good throughout this third round of action in the LCK. It is very much more so. You're hyped for KT because, again, they've been beat down by these top three squads. Even though they've had a lot of competitive series, this felt like them finally breaking through that door to get a series victory in dominant fashion. And I hope that this confidence carries over towards playoffs for the squad, because they are still, and especially after this, the front runners for that fourth seed to go to Worlds.
You're out of time for this to be the dance of one step forward, two steps back. This has got to be 2 steps forward and keep moving forward for a squad like KT with the type of distance, type of ground that you got to make up. You got to make sure and solidify yourself one of these spots, aiming towards Worlds and a championship type of appearance. That's where your level is, and for right now, getting this type of win, getting this type of response against T1 in the Telecom War, that's good, but you got to go to great. And going to great is now stepping that level up consistently against the T1s, the Hanwha Lifes, the Gen Gs that exist within this group. And maybe that challenge isn't immediately, okay, T1, check mark done. Now let me take on Gen G in the run that... It's not quite like that, but I think at the very least for KT, they've now reinserted themselves within at least the conversation about this top group within the LCK.
And maybe Gen G's on the next page for them to get to, but Hanwha Life now, I think you can... I'm not going to say they're at the same level, but you can start to compare, even though, Hanwha's had KT's number, they've had competitive series, and then you see Hanwha again against Gen G. They pick up a game, and you're going, okay, let's see if they can finally take them down. And game 3 ends up being a stomp over towards Gen G, and we get to see the Duro Blitzcrank, and just, there's been a lot of glazing over Gen G as they've had such this dominant run. But one more shout out to this rookie coming into this star-studded lineup who people were harping on during the LCK Cup when really the only moment Gen G didn't look elite this year. And since then, this guy has basically put himself ahead of every support not named Kyria in the LCK.
And I think when I think back of every type of potential, every type of prospect we have seen, I haven't seen anybody deliver the same way except for Kyria did in those early years for him in his career, easily identifiable by so many people, the highest of analysts to the lowest of low of couch potato watchers. It doesn't matter. It was so clear the skill and decision making that this player has. And then Duro is showcasing a lot of those type of same feelings, same type of emotions that people felt when they saw Kyria step onto the scene. And to be able to do so with a lineup, a star stacked, as story lined up as this Gen G lineup is been one of the phenomenal stories to keep track of within the LCK.
And it still really just feels like Gen G is a squad that's going through the motions, and that sounds like a negative thing, but the fact that them just kind of going through the motions is them still steamrolling squads like Hanwha Life in game 3, where it feels like they're not fully on autopilot, but not completely locked in and laser focused like we've seen them at some of these international events. And that is one of the even more terrifying ideas of this version of Gen G.
I think I'm more scared about something like that, because that's that idea that there has been that switch. There has been an identification of what is that difference between our domestic dominance and the international stage. And sometimes it is as simple as locking in, being in a different type of environment, different type of mode, separating yourself to reach a different level of performance. I think that we have seen that this year from Gen G, no question. So I'm not going to be questioning their focus and lock in for this one in the LCK. I'm sure that we're going to see that sharpen up quite a little bit here as we get, again, weeks, days, months closer to this World Championship.
I'm not going to say they're the sharpest team in the LPL, but again, we've talked about IG being the most exciting team, regardless of who they're matching up against, and that continued against Weibo. We're talking about a near 10K gold comeback from IG, and if you look at the resume of work for IG so far in the split, they have had so many base races, Nexus rushes, 10K comebacks, have had some of the craziest string of games that we've ever seen in a single split. And here they are still sitting as one of the main contenders for a title right now in China.
It's going to go one of two ways when you're talking about those type of results for Invictus Gaming. One is that it just is that wildly inconsistent. This team is never able to put forth the exact full, consistent type of effort, focus, preparation, whatever the combination is on the day to equal out these performances. Or the answer is that this Invictus Gaming has gone through every type of possibility, every type of emotion, moment, every swing and swung of a situation within the game, that they're prepared. They're ready for any type of possibility. And the way that it feels and the way that it's looked in the last couple of weeks, I'm more so leaning towards that last option, where it is that they're just able to adapt, overcome any type of situation, any type of moment, any emotion that is going on within these games. And it all starts, of course, with Rookie in the mid lane, but this type of overall improvement for the team can't be leaving out our guy who we do criticize when it's not on. The Shy is starting to showcase the type of skill and the type of decision making that we talk about him being that difference maker, being that 1v2, 1v3 demon that you got to check yourself up against in the top side.
Yeah, and he's still going to have a fair share of him feeding. That's kind of like the double-edged sword, that when you choose the Shy as your starting card, it can completely take over a game or cost you the game, and that's just the risk you take with him. But for all the inconsistencies, IG is now, still potentially finishing top 2 heading into these playoffs. They have a final regular season matchup against BLG, which is, they basically have the same record. It's probably going to decide who finishes as that top 2 spot. And we know top 2, we get that extra life, push far into the bracket stage 4 playoffs. So the fact that they've had these incredibly close series back and forth probably shouldn't win games, but they have won them in whatever fashion, and they're sitting here with the longest win streak in the LPL right now.
There's a lot of times where sometimes that can lead to the fake pretender, whatever type of thing that comes through. But I think that there's been enough reasons, enough indications on this IG team to believe in themselves and what they can do in the LPL. And I think there has been a little bit of a power gap, a little bit of a vacancy at that very tippity top of someone being extra elite. BLG taking a little bit of time from MSI, anyone's legend taking a little bit of time getting going since MSI, that it created this window for a squad like IG to step up, to be in a position, even with the volatility of their games, the results have equaled out to make sure that they are in that top picture.
And the other top dogs in the LPL, mainly business as usual. Again, not the cleanest from the top of the table. Top eSports against World Elite, BLG against FPX. Maybe slower or losing games that you wouldn't expect. But, they talk about the dog days of summer. This is the dog days of the regular season in the LPL. Going through these round robins again, I feel like you can see the kind of complacency just waiting for playoffs, especially from these top teams in the LPL.
I think the comparing of what we were talking about Gen G going through the motions type of thing, compare that to some of these. It's definitely, you can see the difference that we were talking about that lock-in factor with even kind of sleepwalking through some of these matches.
The LPL's in the mud a little bit more. It's a lot sloppier.
But even within those games, and the BLG one, I didn't think there was maybe too much that was going on exciting for it. But hey, you can check in with Top Esports. You can check in and on our boy Kanavi playing, what is that? Some Zed jungle, getting in there a little bit extra. And I think it's time that we talk about that. This is one of those picks that comes through and is just so drastically different than everything else that has been meta for the jungle in the last while, if not ever. To see that this champion come through and see these players' skill set and execution on a champion like this from the jungle perspective is something that I think is one of the great fresh things that we do have within the game right now.
Yeah, and we're so used to losing our minds over a Vi Q flash punch or a Jarvan combo that you're like, look at this mechanical display. So yes, seeing guys like Kanavi, Canyon, Tarzan get to play Zed, which is just a completely different play style than we're accustomed to seeing over the last several years in the jungle, is an absolute treat. I hope it stays around for the World Championship because, again, with fearless guys being able to pull that out in a decisive game, oh man, it's a fun time to watch. And this helps Kanavi's case for front-runner MVP in the LPL this year.
It feels heretical, but I almost like him more in the jungle than I ever liked him in the mid lane or any other position. I just think that kind of the flow of moving through the jungle camps, going lane to lane, if it's exactly what he wanted to do anyways, even though he was stuck to that mid lane more or less, or the responsibility was supposed to be there type of thing. Never stayed in that mid lane anyways, so it's fun to see that. And yes, the difference for players like Canyon, like Kanavi, getting to see them on this is one of the real treats that we have right now within the meta.
AL was the other top dog or expected top dog in the LPL on the Rift, who took care of business against JDG. Focus pays, win the game. It's a strategy against JDG, and we saw Flandre have one of the best timed Scion ults that you will ever see, ulting across the map and immediately landing onto Scout right as he TPs in, so he gets blown up before he even gets to press a button.
I don't know how you get that timing right on that one. I can barely time leaving my house at the right time to get to an appointment that I know is supposed to be this distance away. How are you doing the Scion Ultimate at the right time? That type of one. That one had my mind blown. Impressive stuff.
Think of how many times guys are in Zanyas and they pop out, whether it's an Ezreal ulti or some other CC. More often than not, guys are whiffing the timing on that and not getting it right. But this new updated TP with the Scion ulti, we got to give Flandre the flowers for this one, my man.
Yeah, the execution, the calculations, the mathematics going on for that one. More than I've ever seen, more than I would ever expect from a Scion to be able to figure out. But this time, coming on through is Flandre with the big time ult.
And obviously AL now looking like, again, contenders to defend their LPL title as they climb towards the top. JDG, we'll see if they can do okay against these best of 5 quali matches against whoever's coming up from that Rise group, because there's a lot of issues with JDG still.
I'm gonna need a lot more from a lot of the rest of this team figuring out a way to keep FaZe alive as that type of prime damage dealing option, prime skill player. That's going to be the priority for me for JDG. And the question is whether the rest of the squad can find a way to level up and execute those roles.
Bit of a dark weekend, as we alluded to in the LTA, with the losers bracket kicking off, and they're in the closet studio of the Riot Games arena. 100 Thieves versus Lion Gaming. You saw everyone hyping up Lion. We thought maybe they're the 4th best team. They've been doing well in scrims, getting all this praise, which is the perfect storm for them to kind of throw away 2 leads against the 100 Thieves, with Big Dokes in the top lane. River picks up series MVP, and really since Dokla has joined 100 Thieves, you're just getting, he's been more consistent than Sniper, or less. Sniper could take over some games, but he was also dying uncharacteristically, falling behind too early. So the more consistent Dokla has allowed for the strengths of 100 Thieves in River and Quid to shine even brighter.
Yeah, and I don't think it's controversial or anything crazy to say that moving forward, Sniper is that option that you want to build around, that provides you the most potential for this lineup. But it still is something that I think that maybe the evaluation, maybe the execution at this point needs to be focused on the other players, right? We're talking about Quid, looking at River, finding a way to have success, FBI, all these guys, and looking through this lineup, and sometimes taking away that volatility that a player like Sniper plays with on that good and bad end of it is allowing for us to see this a bit more, I think, with 100 Thieves right now. Disappointed with Leon for sure for throwing away these moments within these games, the advantages that they did have. And at the end of the day, we're left being critical of the format because, again, 29, 28 or whatever, I don't care, the rounded up type of number to 30 type of games for Leon. That's only as many as Gen G basically in the past month and a half type of situation. How are you ever expected to level up, to compete at that type of tier when that is the type of practice that you get?
Yeah, it's a little absurd that for an entire year you're basically playing 1 split worth of games, an old format, 1 split worth of games, and you'll say, well, you need to just be a better team and you'll play more matches. But how does a team get better when they're at the bottom? It's not like there's even a relegation to go through to kind of get more games under your belt. I mean, there might be at the end of the year, but yeah, it's just insane for any of these teams to find any kind of momentum, and you should be thankful that Disguised aren't being eliminated, because I'm pretty sure they play even less games than Lion Gaming. But thankfully, they had that bottom feeder matchup against Dignitas that lived up to the hype as advertised. You've got Dig face checking bushes to throw away a 4K lead around Baron and just getting caught out. This definitely looked like a lower ELO professional match, but it is DSG and the Toast Boys coming away with the win.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly lots of ways that you could be negative or critical about this matchup, but I think that the avenue that I want to choose is, yes, this is a Disguised team that, of all the teams, need extra games, need more practice, need more and everything in the LTA. It's them. So absolutely getting this type of extension in your run for whatever it's worth, whatever it turns into. This, I think, has to be the value. This has to be the play that you wanted and needed to see come through from the group. So I'm happy to see that for them and give them another week, another opportunity to keep pushing through this lower bracket.
And obviously afterwards, the way the format works, Cloud9 is the higher seed, picks their matchup from the losers bracket. They chose DSG, probably to the surprise of absolutely nobody, which means C9 Disguised and then Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves are your next round in these matchups. And listen, Cloud9 fresh off of getting upset by Shopify, who are a much better team than Disguised. But Mark, imagine the disaster year if Cloud9 somehow gets upset again.
No, I don't even want to bring that bad mojo out there at this point, because you're right. I don't know if we've ever seen a failure year for Cloud9 the way that this one would be characterized if they were unable to move through, even with lowered expectations that are, fluctuating and different, understanding the youth of this roster. No way, cannot happen. I'm not even going to speak it into existence as a possibility here this time against Disguised.
It'd have to be a mega choke job, even though DSG, they showed up against Dignitas. But again, I think it's more the upset from Shopify. Shopify was playing really well in that set, and it looked like the third best team or second best team after Cloud9. So totally different storylines there. But yeah, again, the format going to be harped on for the lack of games for these squads. We're going to harp on the LEC for their Monday, Tuesday matchups. And again, it feels like we're smack dab in the middle of the season and you're waiting for kind of these lackluster matchups. But these are playoffs in the LTA and the final week of the regular season in the LEC. And the hype it's nowhere to be seen.
It feels like the middle of the season when you realize it's not the middle of the season. We're, again, gearing up towards Worlds. That's where a lot of the focus is starting to shift towards. And I believe you, if we're focusing our shift towards Worlds, organizations like Gen G, T1, top eSports, they're absolutely getting themselves primed and prepared for that type of opportunity. You can't catch yourself sleeping anymore than we've already been sleeping, not playing as many games as the LCK and the LPL when we're talking about the LTA and the LEC.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in just a regular season trance. There's been so many games. I need the playoffs to get going. LCK, LPL doesn't matter. I need playoffs. We need Worlds qualification, and we are just a couple weeks away from that finally kicking off. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute beauties. Thanks for hanging out.